Kefauver medicine. In 1962, Congress enacted Senator Kefauver's Drug Industry Act, which gives the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare almost limitless power to control the drug industry. In 1962, the Department of HEW wrote itself a new administrative law, giving itself almost limitless power to control the production and distribution of health foods and vitamins. One danger of such control laws is related to fluoridation of public water systems. If officialdom has authority to determine what drugs people should have, and can even have certain drugs administered to the whole population by force through use of public water systems as a medium, imagine the consequences. All unconstitutional federal laws in this field should be repealed, and the income tax should be repealed to make all socialistic programs impossible. That is a summary of my report on Kefauver medicine. The full report after a message from my sponsor. In April 1962, President Kennedy urged favorable action on Estes Kefauver's Drug Industry Control Bill, which, Kefauver claimed, was intended to break up the drug trusts and give consumers lower prices. The timing of the bureaucracy is often brilliant. The stated purpose of the Kefauver bill was to protect the pocketbooks of the people, not their health. But in the summer of 1962, about the time the bill was reported out of committee, the press was featuring stories about thalidomide, a German-made tranquilizing drug which allegedly had caused malformation of many European babies. The case of an Arizona woman who had taken thalidomide, which her husband had bought in London, made front-page headlines for several days. On August 1st, 1962, President Kennedy announced that because of the thalidomide disaster, he was recommending a 25% increase in the Food and Drug Administration staff to prevent even more serious disasters from occurring in this country in the future, he said. For a woman to discover that she is bearing a malformed baby is unquestionably regrettable. But for the President of the United States to allude to it as a national disaster is a bit extreme. Moreover, since the drug which caused the sad affair was made in Germany and sold in England, it is difficult to see how an increase in the American bureaucracy can do anything about it. Yet Congress offered practically no opposition to the Drug Industry Act of 1962, which became law in October. The Act gives the Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare almost limitless power to reward private business firms that the Secretary likes by giving their products his blessings, or to destroy any drug manufacturing company which the Secretary does not like, under the pretense that the firm fails to meet the Secretary's standards. In June 1962, the Secretary of HEW wrote himself a new law in this same general field, thus making one more addition to the body of unconstitutional administrative laws. Federal regulations which are not enacted as law by our elected representatives, but are merely proclaimed as law by appointed bureaucrats. This HEW regulation lists 12 vitamins and minerals which bureaucrats consider essential to human nutrition, and prohibits the manufacturers of health foods and vitamins from listing on their labels any but these 12 recognized nutrients. The science of nutrition is, of course, still in its infancy, yet no progress in this field is now encouraged except as authorized by the federal bureaucrats. In fact, the new regulation is so vague and broad that the clerks in Washington could outlaw many health food products already on the market. Energetic enforcement of this regulation would halt progress in this field. There simply can be no progress when the creative and productive efforts of men are controlled by bureaucrats whose decisions can be influenced by politics, by personal laziness, and by personal inclination to stay perpetually in well-worn ruts that are safe and easy. On January 11, 1962, President Kennedy said, quote, "I am proposing a mass immunization program aimed at the virtual elimination of such ancient enemies of our children as polio, diphtheria, whooping cough, and tetanus," end quote. Congress obliged with an act providing $36 million tax dollars for the U.S. Surgeon General to use in a massive program of vaccinating Americans with government-purchased serums. In all, 1962 was a good year for American socialists. While the public was kept entertained with the question of whether the medical profession should be quickly socialized by the Democrat Social Security approach, or whether it should continue to be gradually socialized by the Republican-favored practice of granting federal tax money to states, the politicians and bureaucrats were moving vigorously to socialize the related activities of drug and nutrient production. The rigged and slanted Kefauver drug industry hearings were a part of the propaganda barrage preceding enactment of the Drug Industry Act of 1962. But in all the propaganda, there was no mention of any specific instance of harm to the health of the people resulting from the absence of governmental controls over the mass marketing of drugs. Except for the President's ridiculous reference on August 1 to the thalidomide disaster, there was little effort to make a case for the Drug Industry Act as being necessary to protect the public from harmful drugs. The case for the Drug Industry Act rested on Kefauver's claim that the law was necessary to protect the public from high prices imposed by the monopolistic drug industry. Bureau of Labor Statistics do reveal that between 1948 and 1958, when all wholesale prices increased 22%, the wholesale prices of drugs increased 3%. It is no doubt true that drug companies could charge lower prices and still make a reasonable profit. But when government moves in to create lower prices, prices will probably go up and quality go down. When a governmental agency can make or break a company by giving or withholding its blessings, we will have drug companies directing their primary effort not toward research and development intended to outpace competitors, but toward currying favor with the all-powerful bureaucracy. We will have in the drug industry the same situation we now have in the agricultural industry: waste, stupidity, graft, corruption, a vast breeding ground for promoters like Billy Salvestis. When the full effect of the Kefauver law is felt, if ever, the drug industry in the United States will be in the hands of a few major favorites of the Washington bureaucracy. None will be struggling to outpace the others in research or in price reduction, because all will be operating exactly alike under standards set by the Secretary of HEW. Senator Kefauver was accurate in saying that the expensive advertising of the drug industry is added to the cost of drugs and is thus charged to consumers. That is true of all advertising. But Kefauver reveals profound ignorance of American business when he implies that advertising unnecessarily inflates the cost of consumer goods. Communists and socialists generally regard advertising as a parasitic and wasteful activity which increases the cost of consumer goods without giving consumers commensurate benefits. The fact is that advertising is one of the major reasons for the miracle of American production. By creating mass markets for a product, advertising makes the economy of mass production possible, thus drastically reducing the cost of consumer goods. If, for example, there were no mass markets for drugs, which advertising has created, all drugs would be made in shops too small to use the money-saving techniques of mass production. And the price of all drugs, though not burdened with advertising costs, would be much higher than now. There must, of course, be controls on an industry which vitally affects the health of the whole people. But when government controls, it makes matters worse because it gives the power of decision to politicians and bureaucrats who cannot have as keen a sense of personal responsibility as industry leaders must have. If the head of a drug firm makes a wrong decision about the production, labeling, or marketing of a drug, he could incur lawsuits and loss of reputation that might bankrupt his firm and destroy something he spent a lifetime in building. If a Washington bureaucrat makes the same mistake, there is a good possibility that the whole bureaucracy will, in the interest of protecting itself, congeal and conspire to hide the error. If the mistake cannot be hidden, the bureaucrat may be reprimanded. The only safe and effective control over industry is the control of rigorous competition in an economic system free of governmental harassment and regulations. Competition for the dollars of the buying public compels private industry to strive for better products and lower prices. Bureaucratic and political controls stifle initiative and remove incentive for progress, resulting inevitably in shoddy products and higher prices. Look at the record. Because it has been the freest in the world, the American drug industry has produced more drugs than the industries of all other countries of the world put together. In the Soviet Union, the drug industry is in precisely the status that liberals are preparing for the American industry. That is, it is totally controlled by government. And the drug industry in the Soviet Union has not developed one new product of consequence in the 43 years of total governmental control. Approximately 2/3 of all new drugs prescribed by British doctors since socialized medicine came to England were developed by American drug companies. Prior to the socialization of medical care in England, the English were outstanding contributors in the development of miracle drugs, penicillin, for example. One danger of the drug control laws is related to a danger involved in the senseless drive for fluoridation of public water systems. Mental control drugs have already been developed, drugs which increase the susceptibility of the human mind to suggestions, drugs which pacify and make human beings amenable to discipline. If power-hungry men who rule the nation politically have the authority to determine what drugs the people should have, how those drugs shall be named and labeled, and how they shall be distributed, and can even have certain drugs administered to the whole population by force through use of public water systems as a medium, who can fail to foresee the potential consequences? Many of these laws already on the books form the basis for a dictatorship which can utterly crush freedom in the United States. The remedy is to compel Congress to repeal them. Goodbye. God bless you.